25, and it includes a wonderful day of golf and fun and prizes and a wonderful banquet after. So it's going to be a really good time. And also, we have on Friday, July 18th, if you want to come out and support our members, we're going to be doing a 50-50 at the Edmonton Cracker Cats. And so that'll be a really fun day in the stands. I think Michelle's going to be out there selling some tickets, and I think Paul Jasper's out there and going to rock it out. It's going to be a good time. And then finally, we have our August social and networking night, which will also be at the Petroleum Club here. And we have Linda Lenswish speaking, and that's going to be really fun. So we encourage you to come to that. Committees. We have two fabulous committees getting started right now. We have our Alumni Barbecue Committee, which Ms. Veronica Calista is heading up. And so the Alumni Barbecue is our second one. And this is our way of staying in touch with all of our past members and senators and all the people who have been friends and part of making JCI an organization in Edmonton. So we're really looking forward to that. It's a free event and it doesn't take too much time. So Veronica is looking for a few people to get involved with her. So just talk to Veronica and she can get you on board. Also, Chris Curtola, right over there, is heading up our sizzling 20 under 30 committee. And so we've struck a partnership with Edmontonians Magazine and their awards program for the sizzling 20 under 30. And so we're going to be working with them, and so Chris is going to be heading that up. It sounds like a great opportunity to get involved. So talk to Chris, and he'll get you all sorted out there. And I'd just like to take the opportunity to point out our board members who are here tonight. We have Mrs. Jamie Houghton, who's our Director of Training. And looking around the room, I see Andrew Gregory, who is our Secretary. And I see Ms. Michelle Cowan, who is our Chairman of the Board and also Western Region President. Veronica Calista, as mentioned, she's our Director of Communications, and Mr. Chris Curtola, who is our Vice President. Also, I wanted to highlight the fact that Colleen Alexander is here, and she's also a senator in our organization. And senatorship is given, it's the highest award you can receive from JCI International, and it's given to someone who just continually gives back to the organization over and above the normal level. And she's really done that. Wonderful. I also like to highlight that we have two special guests here this evening. We have Mr. Paul Stone and Mrs. Kim Stone, and they're former members, and Paul's also a past president with JCI Edmonton, and they currently reside in lovely Kelowna, British Columbia, but they're here for a few weeks and decided to come and say hello and come see what's happening with JCI Edmonton. So thanks for being here tonight, guys. So also, Chris, you want to come up? Just talk about JCI Edmonton, a little bit about what we do. That'd be great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Round of applause.
That was for you, Julie.
Thank you, Chris.
Son. Well, thank you guys for being here. I know it's a really nice hot day out. I'm sure we'd all rather be in our shorts on the patio. Just to speak really briefly here, most of everybody here today, except for Adam, are members of our organization. So
hi, Adam.
Hi, Adam. This speech is for you. And yes, we have someone here from Prepaid Legal Services, one of the sponsors of our golf tournament. He's not really a member either, so yeah, you can listen to this as well. I'm just going to speak briefly about who we are, what we do, and also I'm going to say a lot of new members here too. So. We all know that we're a really great group of young people in the city trying to do some good stuff. A lot of you have joined recently, maybe in the last 6 months. And I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is that if you join the organization, yes, you can come to the events, but if you really get involved and maybe start getting on some committees, start planning some things out, that's when you really get a lot back. Julie mentioned we've got a lot of great upcoming events coming, and we've still got room to make some more. So that's what these committees are all about, is really planning new events and doing some new good things. JCI Edmonton, almost 8 years old, as most of us know, and most of the things that we do sort of fit into the 4 categories that we like to talk about all the time. So personal development, business development, international travel and fellowship, and community responsibility or community involvement. So that's really what we're all about. If any of you have any questions, or you might have missed our new member orientation that we had a couple of weeks ago, just come grab one of the board members and see how you can get involved. And once again, thank you all for being here. And now I would like to introduce Veronica to introduce our speaker. Veronica.
So without further ado, I want to tell you a little bit about our speaker, Kyle Fawcette. Kyle was elected to his first term as an MLA for Calgary North Hill, just with this election on March 3rd. Kyle is a very hardworking MLA, as I know because I have worked with Kyle. In addition to being an MLA representing his constituents, Kyle serves as a member of the Public Accounts Committee, the Private Bills Committee, as well as the Standing Committee on Health. Prior to being an MLA, Kyle worked for 3 years as a public school board trustee up in Calgary, and he also is an alumni of the University of Calgary, graduating with a degree in political science and economics. Without further ado, our guest speaker for today, Kyle Fawcette.
Thank you, Veronica, for that introduction. I know that everybody would probably much rather be somewhere else than listening to a politician today. But unfortunately, you're stuck here listening to me, and I, like most other politicians, like to talk. So, but in all honesty, it's a pleasure to be here. Anytime that I get an opportunity to talk to people, particularly younger people in this province, I always try to take advantage of that. And so that's kind of what what I want to talk about, and that's kind of about what it's like to be young, to be in our society, and to be right here, right now. So I want to start out tonight by asking you to consider the following statement by sociologist Anselm Strauss. The age of the important others as related to your own age is not merely a matter of age, but of race, nationality, social class, social status, sex, and a host of all other variables. But the world is different for persons of different age and generation, even if they share in common sex, class, and nationality and occupation. Keeping that in mind, I want to read, keeping the quote I just read in mind, I want to talk about the opportunity we have before us as we gather here today. It's summed up by the JCI Edmonton's mission of contributing to the advancement of the global economy by providing the opportunity for young people to develop the leadership skills, social responsibility, entrepreneurship, and fellowship necessary to create positive change. That has brought all of us here today, and in general terms, it's what motivated me to seek a seat in the provincial legislature last fall. The JCI mission statement is more than just that. It's a doctrine or a mantra of our place in our time. What is our place in time? We are the millennials, the under 40s, which is overlapped by two generations, commonly referred to as Generation X, those born between 65 and 79, and Generation Y, born between 80 and 94. Me, I'm a tweener, born in November 1979. I share both the high performance and high maintenance traits of Gen Ys and the cautious skepticism of Generation Xers. In the 1963 Review of Politics publication, it published its 25th anniversary edition. In it was an article by a gentleman named Marvin Rintala titled A Generation in Politics, a Definition. In the article he states, many of the groups to which we belong, of which we are conscious, and to which we feel a sense of allegiance, such as our nation and our class, may indeed survive for centuries or longer. There is, however, one group to which we belong that need not fear immortality, our generation. So as we gather here today, we share a common destiny, a likeness and a shared experience that cannot be understood at the same level as those that come before us or on those that will come after us. We are technological wizards and multitaskers who are adept at utilizing Blackberries, cell phones, the internet seamlessly and often simultaneously. The world for us is just one click away. We value a balanced lifestyle. We want to work, but we don't want work to be our lives. We prefer our lifestyle to be less linear and sequential and composed of changing roles, phases, and careers, the order of which might vary from person to person. We've been taught to constantly explore our options. Our economic realities are more challenging than what our parents experienced. Costs for basics such as housing, insurance, and education have escalated, even as income growth for the middle class has slowed. Young people today may earn more dollars than their parents, but our money buys less, and we generally feel poorer and have less economic security. According to Robert Thompson, a professor of media and popular culture at Syracuse University, we seem to be more focused on acquisition, suggesting that we are increasingly defining ourselves and our financial status by our stuff, rather than our savings. We are not only shaped by our common values and environment, we have and will continually and significantly be impacted by the large influence of the baby boomer generation. Further, the unique demographics and relationships between the boomer generation, Gen X, and Gen Y will have significant effects on our society for decades to come. Gen X rivals the baby boomer generation in size. Generation Y rivals the baby boomer generation in size. Gen X, while being half the size, is in many ways the bridge generation. They have internalized the work ethic and focus of their parents, the baby boomers, in large part because they began their economic and professional lives when jobs were harder to get and keep in the early 1990s. This was a time of economic recession and downsizing in the workplace, quite opposite of today's economic climate in which there are increasingly more jobs than people to fill them. Yet Gen X is closer in age to the Gen Ys and can more easily relate due to the overlap in culture, views, and values. I see many nodding their heads, and this for us, for better or for worse, is our reality, our time. Our place is Alberta, a bustling province in Canada that is a microcosm of the large global society. It seems more and more Alberta is taking a larger role in the affairs of Canada and the world. A soaring world oil price, an abundance of sand mixed with usable hydrocarbons has brought Alberta into the economic and social forefront. Alberta's emergence as a major economic player on the national world stage is not the only unique trend. Alberta's demographic profile is also noteworthy. Alberta's median age of 35.5 is significantly lower than the national average of 38.8. Combine this with the fact that Canada has proportionally fewer seniors and more young people than the Europe 15 and Japan, and one can only paint a very clear picture that Alberta has a young and vibrant population to complement its economic prowess. For the last 10 years, Alberta has been the province with the largest interprovincial migratory gains in Canada. Between 1996 and 2006, Alberta had a net interprovincial migration of over 250,000 people, well above any other province. An interesting note about that is that Saskatchewan, between the same time period, had the largest negative net migration. And the interesting thing about that for this province is Saskatchewan and Alberta are very much moving ahead, going to be competing for a number of the skilled labor market force. While Alberta's population seems to be robust, young, and vibrant, the proportion of people over 65 has also increased. The numbers of seniors in Western Canada will more than double by 2031. Another unique demographic trend in Alberta is that Calgary and Edmonton are the two fastest growing census metropolitan areas in Canada. In short, Alberta is becoming young, urban, and powerful. This is our place. As we stare through the crosshairs of our time and our place, the interconnectedness of the world does not seem to faze us. After all, the speed of change and breadth of information brought about by technology is only tempered by the reality of experiencing the Walkman to Discman to iPod Nano transition. Also, the complexity of a changing social and economic order brought about by globalization is mitigated in comparison to the effects produced by the rapid growth, change, and urbanization in our own communities. For us, rapid change and amplified complexity is the new paradigm. It can be said that our time and our place is the eye of the new paradigm. Like a storm, this new paradigm is formed through a series of interconnected dynamics. As we embrace our new paradigm, we will be facing interrelated social, economic, and political challenges and issues of great magnitude and consequence. The sophistication of such challenges are truly unique. The significance of these challenges are highlighted in the concept paper for the 2008 open meeting hosted by the IHDP, or International Human Dimensions Program on Environmental Change. And this is an organization comprised of the International Council for Science, UNESCO's International Social Science Council, and the United Nations University. The concept paper for this open forum provides a solid framework for some of the most important questions that we face in our time and our place. Such questions as these pose a profound challenge to contemporary forms of government or governance. At some level, this challenge has been recognized in the effort to create indicators of sustainable development, quantitative measures that enable decision makers to factor in elements of sustainability into decisions that might otherwise have relied solely on economic criteria. But the challenge to governance goes deeper than just creating new indicators. New governance processes are required that can facilitate the inclusion of new kinds of information, new values, and new voices into decision making. This, in return, requires new institutional settings, and prior to that, adaptability of current institutions. New kinds of arrangements must be made to rebalance the relationship between formal and informal institutions. Consequently, citizens and experts, acknowledging that citizens hold valuable knowledge that is key to creating sustainable communities at all levels of society, from the village to the globe. And just as importantly, new avenues of decision making must be opened up to enable scrutiny and reflection in the design, creation, and management of managerial and technological as well as scientific systems to ensure the achievement of sustainable societal and ecological outcomes. Another significant challenge of our time and our place is the acceptance of a post-industrial economy where knowledge is capital. This is the paradox of our time and place. The foundation of our economic prosperity is the upstream oil and gas sector. In industrial terms, this primary industry is a long ways from the concept of a knowledge-based economy. The challenge that we face is how to take advantage of the economic opportunities of our geography and at the same time propel ourselves into the new and diverse knowledge-based economy. This balance will likely be key to our future prosperity in Alberta. Our place and our time has dictated that future prosperity will hinge on the direction that we take in regards to technology and climate change. These are the issues that define us. Given the importance of energy resource extraction to the Alberta economy, it is essential that we lead rather than follow. We must set the dialogue and tone of discussions, and we must start by getting over the climate change debate and onto the real issues of energy economics and consumption. The issue of climate change is not an environmental challenge. It is a shift in economic thinking, a shift to a knowledge-based economy where technology and efficiency are the currency to prosperity and sustainability. Opponents of this perspective dismiss it by promoting a wealth redistribution scheme wrapped up in a nice green environmental package. However, there are two convincing premises as to why we should align our thinking and our environmental policies and practices with this concept of economic sustainability. First of all, the science of global warming is complicated and at best confusing to the average person. With crude oil prices at record highs and the cost of goods and services increasing in response, the real issue for the average person is the cost of energy. The issue is really about our over-reliance on traditional energy and its emergence as the single most important economic driver. With easy access to capital and labor through increased trade liberation, the focus on energy access has gained greater focus in the global marketplace. As a result, energy has become the single most important input cost for businesses. Combine this with the fact that oil and gas are a finite resource, and all of a sudden the economics around the acquisition of energy are changing. The use of hedging and speculation have become more prevalent, skewing the supply and demand equilibrium. We need to address this real issue through both supply and demand measures. We need to invest in technologies that will develop and bring to market alternative and renewable energy sources, as well as create better energy efficiency in business processes and individual day-to-day living. Such initiatives would bring down the price of energy through the introduction of economical alternatives to traditional energy sources, and through decreasing energy demand by increasing energy efficiency. While the environment and the potential of global warming is an important issue for most individuals, including those under the age of 40, however, studies have shown that the importance of the environment decreases significantly as economic consequences to individuals increase. For the average person, economic sustainability is a priority, while environmental achievements is the proverbial cherry on top. The second premise is that while it would be prudent to address the real issues around energy prices, consumption, and demand, the green aspect must not be ignored. The fact is that the green phenomenon has less to do with the environment than it does about marketing and perception. We must recognize this and adopt an economic policy framework that allows us to benefit from this phenomenon rather than be penalized for it. Again, the answer lies in technology. It is common sense economics. Be leaders by investing in technology that mitigates environmental impacts and then bring it to market. The return on investment will be twofold. A return on the investment itself through the commercialization of technology, as well as the opportunity to market products as green or low emission products through the use of technology. Now this would seem like an easy proposition, but we are in the infancy stage of the knowledge-based economy. Technology and knowledge brings about as many questions as it does answers, and its proliferation in today's society is becoming exponential. This leaves us with more questions than answers and an economic reality that is more fluid than that of the industrial economy. Some of the large questions we are struggling with in regards to a knowledge-based economy are: what are the definitions and forms of knowledge, work arrangements, and workplaces in a so-called knowledge-based economy at both the global and local scales? What are the implications of a knowledge-based economy on a sector-specific basis? What are the changing demands that a knowledge-based economy places on the regulatory frameworks of governments? This means that certain government policies, particularly those relating to science, technology, industry, and education, will need a renewed emphasis in the knowledge-based economies. We need to acknowledge the central role of the firm and the importance of developing structured innovation systems with the required infrastructure and incentives to encourage investment. The knowledge-based economy requires that the firm make necessary adjustments as well. The changing demands for knowledge in a fast-paced, global, social, and economic environment necessitates changes in the way knowledge itself is managed and the ways in which knowledge workers and their work are organized. They must bring together diverse expertise and experts and provide flexible managerial responses, including new recruitment and retention strategies. New information and communication technologies have transformed the traditional context and places where key knowledge activities take place. The result is that the styles of work, workplace values, practices, and norms, as well as career expectations, are changing rapidly. Compare this with the inherent skills and attitudes of Gen X and Gen Yers. It is very evident why this is our time and our place. It would seem that the world is our oyster. However, we face some significant obstacles and barriers in tackling today's issues. While we have the capacity, we don't have the tools. We are living in a time where we lack dynamic leadership and our governance systems are outdated. Our leadership capacities and governance systems were developed to solve 20th century problems. They lack the flexibility and collaborative spirit required to deal with the rapid change and tremendous complexity of today. These institutions, policies, and practices have been shaped not by us, but by those who preceded us. Their experience was different. It was a different time and a different place. Societal dynamics involve the relationship between psychological, cultural, and social factors which influence perception and decision-making individually as well as in groups. This is the basis for understanding the values and priorities of a group, as well as how they will react to different kinds of social and environmental changes. These are of capital importance in how government systems have evolved to this point, shaped by those from a different time and place. While what preceded us might provide us some challenges, we must also be thankful and modest. The opportunity we have today would not exist if it were not for the courage and determination of those before us. However, if we want to contribute to a better future, like the one that they have provided us, we must not be complacent. We must be willing to challenge some of their biggest assumptions. This is at the crux of what I came here to talk to you about today, and can be summed up by the popular Canadian journalist, publisher, and producer, Wayne Dyer. He states, "Our intelligence tends to produce technological and social change at a rate faster than our institutions and emotions can cope with. Innovation is cumulative and the rate of change accelerates. We therefore find ourselves continually trying to accommodate new realities within inappropriate existing institutions and try to think about those new realities in traditional but sometimes dangerously irrelevant terms." I want to use 4 particular examples that we face here in Alberta as an example of how our current institutions, policies, and practices are incapable to deal with our current realities and challenges. These 4 issues dominated the recent provincial election and were the pillars of my successful campaign in Calgary North Hill. They are infrastructure, education, the economy and the environment, and healthcare. It must be noted that these challenges are just not unique to Alberta. Jurisdictions across Canada and the entire world for that matter are also grappling with these on a daily basis. Here in Alberta, we are under tremendous strain when it comes to our public infrastructure. The rapid growth and economic boom, combined with a public agenda for aggressive debt repayment, has created an infrastructure deficit here in Alberta. Before we start laying blame, we must again consider that Alberta is hardly the only jurisdiction with public infrastructure issues. In fact, it is widely recognized throughout the history of liberal democracies that governments have continually ignored appropriate investment levels in the maintenance and upkeep of public infrastructure. The rationale behind this is very simple. Appropriate levels of funding would either have to come from A, existing operational or program spending, or B, increased taxes. In both cases, the short-term impact and consequences for the general public and taxpayers would be far more noticeable than by simply putting off the infrastructure deficit. This is a perfect example of the infamous and irrational 4-year planning cycles that liberal democratic governments are notorious for. While this type of planning and vision works for politicians and political parties, it does not serve the long-term interests of society. As we become increasingly urban, public infrastructure will be utilized with greater intensity and in greater volumes. The government's 20-year capital plan is a small step in the right direction, but it does not address the root cause of this issue. That is the high cost of capital investment. Education is another area where the traditional ways of thinking and our institutions have not kept up with the opportunities presented by our time and our place. For more than a decade now, we have heard that the term lifelong learning espoused by teachers, industry, academia, public servants, and politicians. While there is no doubt that in today's society we must all be lifelong learners, one only needs to look at the traditional K-12 and post-secondary institutions to see that we are again far behind that metric. We are focused on institutions that were created centuries ago to meet the pre-industrial and industrial economies. Today's lifelong learners are dynamic and capable of accessing education anywhere at any time, and need to do so in order to find and maintain meaningful employment. Instead of delivering education through the traditional K-12 and post-secondary institutions, we need to think of education as a continuum, accessed by individuals when their specific life and career situation dictates. Today, we seem to be spending a significant amount of time, energy, and resources trying to improve high school dropout rates. Before we waste any more of these resources, we need to ask ourselves, is the definition of high school completion and the current structure of high school curriculum relevant to today's students and economy? Issues surrounding healthcare in Canada are very emotional. Many Canadians, yes, even those in Alberta, see public health care as a fundamental right and part of our Canadian identity. This has very much stifled public debate on what should be a top priority in Alberta and Canada. Our affinity to public health care sometimes leaves us with blinders on when it comes to the problems plaguing our healthcare delivery system today. We like to champion our healthcare system as one of the best in the world. But to me, there is something inherently backwards about a system that funds sex changes, but does not provide any dental coverage or support preventative screening for prostate cancer. This is not what ails our system, but it's an illustration as to how naive we can become as Canadians and Albertans when it comes to healthcare. We need to gather the courage to say enough is enough. Let's take a real hard, honest look at healthcare in Canada and Alberta and the fundamentals of what we value and expect. As Jim Collins wrote in his book, Good to Great, we need to face the brutal facts of reality. The brutal facts of our cherished healthcare system are, I'm just going to digress a little bit here, is that the father of public healthcare in Canada, Tommy Douglas, envisioned that user fees would still be applicable and necessary in the public healthcare system. Yet the Canada Health Act makes it fees illegal. The Canada Health Act itself is a federal law in an area where our Constitution gives exclusive jurisdiction to the provinces. The budget for Alberta Health and Wellness now exceeds over 1/3 of the total provincial budget and is increasing every year and has for the last decade. On average, over 90% of the healthcare costs that we incur in our lifetime happen in our last year of living. Moving on, the environment is certainly the topic du jour. In fact, I would argue that the environment has hijacked the public agenda from the previously three and more important issues I just mentioned. When it comes to environmental issues, a significant portion of us are suffering from the same case of blindness we experience in healthcare. We have allowed the public discourse on environment to be separated from discussions on the economy. As well, we have accepted the argument that global warming is the single biggest threat we have to our world and civilization. Many proponents of the environmental movement have painted a black and white picture of you're either for the environment or against it, without any consideration of the impact on the social cohesion in a capitalistic, liberal democracy. In fact, this type of thinking is contrary to the very notion of sustainable development, which is to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Here are the brutal facts on the environment. You cannot stop a century worth of growth, development, and human activity in one decade. Large amounts of our public resources are being spent on the issues of greenhouse gas emissions and global warming because it's popular. However, just as important, or even more important, is the impact development and human activity is having on our landscapes and watersheds. I'm not here today to suggest we need an American-style healthcare system to argue against the science of climate change, propose substantial reforms in education, or indicate that we need unprecedented investment in public infrastructure. Those are the tired arguments of yesterday and not the opportunities of our time and our place. I'm here today to suggest that we need to reconceptualize how we look at issues and what type of solutions they may require. The simple truth is today we live in a society where yesterday's institutions, policies, and practices provide barriers and obstacles for finding meaningful solutions to today's challenges. We also live in a world where the responsibilities and jurisdictions of different actors and entities are converging. Businesses are becoming more socially conscious, taking up social issues of the day. Governments and nonprofits are increasingly utilizing sound and innovative business practices in their day-to-day operations and long-term planning. Also, significant work has been done up to date on identifying and breaking down the stovepipes within government bureaucracies and the silos between government jurisdictions. Long gone are the days when you could concentrate on a single issue or concept, like profit margins, healthcare, education, environmental conservation, land development, or infrastructure. In our time and our place, we are being asked to juggle multiple issues at the same time. And I believe this is a function of how we view the world and our place and our time in it. It is a reflection of the values that we hold. That to leave our mark, we must achieve balance through a holistic perspective. We must think globally and act locally. My objective today is to challenge each and every one of you to embrace our collective time and place by challenging old assumptions with new and creative thinking. As the technological savvy generation, we certainly understand the insinuation that we live in real times. So it is up to us to provide real leadership. Real leadership for our time and our place can be defined by three values: vision, collaboration, and responsibility. At the heart of our last real generational shift and turning point in society was a great line that went something like, "I have a dream." Like Martin Luther King Jr. in the 60s, we need to be leaders by challenging traditional assumptions. We need to be bold and we need to be courageous. In too many circles today, vision is thrown out the window for issue-based thinking. Real leadership requires us to shed the simplistic, zero-sum attitude of issue-based decision-making. Decisions must be made with purpose and a specific intention. Rarely do standalone decisions provide substantial progress in society. Rather, they fuel conflict and a lack of understanding and compassion within our society. Our education system is a perfect example of where we currently lack vision. Our leadership has failed to communicate a vision for an education continuum to meet today's necessity of lifelong learning. A vision that incorporates the latest use of technology for access and learning, and that brings together the needs of the individual, the economy, and society. Collaboration is a term that is widely used, but rarely ever fully understood or properly implemented. In reference to the concept of collaboration, Google CEO Eric Schmidt said, "When you say collaboration, the average 45-year-old thinks they know what you're talking about. Teams sitting down, having nice conversation with nice objectives and a nice attitude. That's what collaboration means to most people." But I'm here today to tell you that collaboration has emerged as a specific and effective response to some of the most challenging problems in our time and our place. It is more than just a fluffy platitude. It involves compromise and the sharing of information, power, and authority. It requires a high level of commitment and formality and a low level of autonomy. Take my earlier example of the public infrastructure challenges that we face in our urban communities. Currently, municipalities are responsible for the approval and development and redevelopment of communities within their respective jurisdictional boundaries. They are also responsible for building and maintaining a significant portion of the public infrastructure needed to sustain communities. It would seem that municipalities have a tremendous amount of autonomy, except they require transfer of funds from the provincial government. Additionally, they are not responsible to build and maintain hospitals, schools, universities, colleges, provincial roadways, or other types of transportation and social infrastructure. If we looked at large urban centers as complex systems of human and economic activities, one can make a very convincing argument that the system is very much interconnected. In fact, it does not take complex system theory to recognize that our roads, parks, schools, hospitals, recreation facilities, and public transit are all connected and interrelated. Yet our public infrastructure planning happens, to a large extent, in siloed planning vacuums such as school boards, health authorities, universities, and other government departments. I will concede that on specific initiatives and projects we have made strides in this area. However, we do lack the holistic, wide-scale approach we require to build complete and sustainable communities. It is much easier to communicate, cooperate, and coordinate than it is to collaborate. Another concept of collaboration is in the area of public infrastructure has to do with public-private collaboration. Relatively speaking, this concept is not new. However, the uptake has been, of this type of thinking has been slow, and that's for various reasons that I don't think we should get into today. However, in our time and our place, we need to recognize that liberal democratic governments cannot fully meet our infrastructure needs. We need to look at innovative ways to support our needs in this area, and the debate on public-private collaboration is past due. The paradox of this issue is that we certainly have, or that we already have a form of public-private collaboration in respect to public infrastructure today, and have for decades. In most liberal democracies, with the exception of a few, public infrastructure is paid by the public, but built at a profit, I might add, by the private sector through competitive bid contracts. The challenge that we face is how can we take these collaborative efforts to the next level to gain greater investment in and benefit from our public infrastructure. This is our time and our place, and therefore we must take responsibility for our individual and collective actions. If there is one area where I believe our society has taken a step backward instead of progressing, it is with the concept of personal responsibility. Our generation, and more specifically the Gen Y portion of it, are the biggest culprits. There is an over-reliance on our societal institutions, which has already started to have serious consequences. In healthcare, we expect that if we get sick, our healthcare system will fix us. Therefore, there is no need to take care of our own health. The rise in obesity and prevalence of tobacco use and binge drinking is evidence of that. Savings. Our generation is not saving at the rate of those that, or at the rate that those before us did. This might be a function of our increased cost of living, but part of it is likely due to our perception that should retire, the government will take care of us. However, the biggest area where we need to embrace and promote individual personal responsibility is the environment. The biggest fallacy I see with the environment, we experience time of economic hardship, social assistance will bail us out. Or that when we were in the green movement, is that they seem to specifically be targeting action by governments. However, it is not governments that instigate or incite change. The irony of liberal democracies and bureaucracies is that in most instances they follow, not lead. Our former Premier, Ralph Klein, said it best when describing what made him so successful as a politician. And remember, he never lost an election in his life. He said, "Find out where the parade is going, then get out in front." The environmental issue is less about the broad-based government policy and more about changing the everyday activities and habits of our individual lives. Yes, a good policy framework can encourage such action. However, unless the commitment from individuals to take responsibility for their environmental footprint is genuine, little or no progress is likely to be made. There is nothing more ironic or hypocritical than groups or individuals that slam oil and gas production companies for their activities when they themselves drive SUVs, purchase foreign-made goods, or leave the tap on when brushing their teeth. A real leader, according to Jim Collins, is someone that when there are issues or problems, looks at themselves first before pointing fingers. To conclude tonight, I want to express my sincere gratitude in letting me speak here tonight. It's these types of opportunities that were my motivation for me, were a motivation for me to get involved in politics and to put my name forward in the past election. I want you to leave here tonight as inspired and motivated as I was last fall when I made the decision. The decision was not easy. I kept thinking, if I'm successful, that would make me the 4th youngest person to be elected to the legislature in the 100-year history of the province. However, I thought what an accomplishment that would be, but I also thought, wow, that would take a lot of hard work. In the end, there were 2 factors that made me make up my mind. I kept coming back to those 2 things. It was my time and my place. It was like the stars were aligned. For me, the rest is history. And boy, does that seem like a long time ago. Today, we need real leadership to forge ahead in the new paradigm of accelerated change and intense complexity. We need to take responsibility for collective or for a collaborative vision and be courageous by challenging the traditional thought and institutions that prevail. Today, right here in Alberta, that is our time and our place. Thank you. And I think, I know that it was indicated that there's usually a question and answer period afterwards, so I'd be more than happy to ask any questions about my presentation or just any sort of questions in general about my experience in the legislature and running as a young individual.
I have a question. You speak about, I mean, really grand and lofty idea that we can somehow get everyone to work together to make things more efficient in the province. How do you propose doing this?
Yeah. Well, that's certainly a challenge, and it's I think that's the main topic of what I was speaking about, because I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to give a number of examples, it's funny, I'm bringing forward a motion, a private member's motion in the House. But in Calgary, and I'm more familiar with Calgary because that's where I'm from, and I was born and raised there. But I just got this experience when I was on the school board. There's a number of issues, particularly when it comes to infrastructure, let's say. For example, the west extension of the LRT in Calgary. Okay, well, the city has a plan to go right through the middle of a current existing high school in Calgary. So, I mean, there's implications of, okay, well, what do you do with the high school? And implications, okay, well, how's it funded? The city's got, you know, the money for the west extension of the LRT. Now, who's going to build the new school? Because we can't just tell those kids not to go to school anymore. So there's a number of challenges, and so that brings the provincial government, the school board, the city, all at the same table. Now you bring in, you know, potential developers, construction companies, and I would seriously ask, whatever comes out, they're going to do it, they'll move ahead, a school will be built. My question is, how do we know that we came together and brought forward the best possible effective and efficient solution? Because what happens is jurisdictions stick their flag in the sand and say, this is my area of responsibility, I don't need to deal with that area of responsibility. But we know they overlap. And that's the biggest challenge, is we really seem to be siloed. And again, it was my line of, it's easy to communicate, it's easy to coordinate, it's easy to cooperate, but collaboration means something more different. It means giving up your autonomy for something greater. And that's the challenge, because if you go and talk to municipalities, You go and talk to school boards right across this province, none of them are able to want to give up their, I mean, they really feel passionate about what they're doing. They think their job's important. And so it's a real challenge. And it's something that has got to happen over time. And that's why I'm here, is I feel like we need to encourage our generation to say, no, we can do things differently. And we've been brought up and we have different values to say that it isn't always about me and what I'm doing, it's about the greater good.
Is there anything you do on a daily basis as young people?
You know what, what I would say on a daily basis is obviously on the environmental issue. I think there's a number of things that we can do. And I'm probably the biggest culprit out of them all. I think that's where we're really going to solve some of the environmental issues, is how we as individuals adjust our daily sort of routines and activities to reduce our environmental footprint. And the government came out with its One Simple Act policy during Environment Week. And the premise behind that was, it might not seem like a lot, but when everybody does that, it has a huge effect. And so that would be the one thing. The other additional thing that I would say is don't be afraid to speak up. And I know that it's certainly been a challenge for me, being a young person. I was reminded the other day by the Speaker of our House that he's been a member of the legislature longer than I've been alive. And so sometimes it can be daunting and challenging to challenge some of the assumptions that you say, why are we doing it that way? And that's why Generation Y was termed Generation Y. Well, because it comes after X, but because I think people in that generation have the courage to say, okay, why are we doing it that way? There's got to be a better way of doing it. And it is amazing, and I'm sure in all of your lives, whether it's in your job or when you're volunteering or doing other things in the communities, have come across something that you just thought did not make sense. And you ask why, and the response has been, it's because we've always done it that way. Well, I don't think that answer should be accepted by us. It's not how we're going to make progress, and it's not how we're going to solve some of the tough issues that we have today, or even the simplest ones.
Any other questions for Kyle?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, with your experience now being an MLA, would you say you still have faith in the political process, or do you think there's a lot of bureaucracy involved?
You know what, that's interesting. I think there are. I mean, and this comes from sort of my own sort of personal political beliefs and values. I do think we are a little bit bureaucratic. And that's why it takes so long to change the system. Because we're entrenched and I don't know, I'm still young and I've never been a cabinet minister before, so I don't know what it's like to operate as, being in charge of a specific ministry or something like that. But I will give you an example of some of the frustrating things. I was met with a constituent of mine yesterday morning who is a doctor and is the past president of the Alberta Medical Association. And we were having a chat about healthcare. And one of the interesting things that the government's done, and the federal government's put some money into it, so has the provincial government, is around these primary care networks. This is really innovative, and to be honest, this is I believe the solution within our publicly funded healthcare system. The problem is that we have them, they exist, but there's so many barriers from the way that we used to do things that are still in the way. For example, a doctor can only get paid if their eyes are on you. Like if they're actually looking at you and meeting with you and talking with you and examining you. And that's a challenge. When you have these primary care networks, there's still not the flexibility for the government to say, okay, well now we need to send you to the nurse who might not charge out at enough money, and really create incentives for doctors to form networks and efficiencies within the healthcare system. So that's some of the challenges that we have. As far as the political process, People seem jaded by the political process, particularly young people, and that's the perception up there. It was funny. I met, and Berenice would know this, I met with a group of young people that were visiting the legislature about 2 months ago, and myself and one of my colleagues from the opposition, that's an MLA here in Edmonton, I won't name names, met with this group of young people. And they asked some very tough questions, both of us. And one of the end questions was like, well, how can we make a difference? It seems like our voice isn't heard. And I said, and so she went off, and to be honest, it was very condescending. She says, and it was sort of a direct shot at my political party and some of the things that we've done. But she said, well, I don't know. She basically told them there was no hope. And I said, and so it was my turn to speak, and I said, get involved. Get involved, make a difference. Don't believe in that there's no hope or that you can't make a difference. And I said, I got elected because there was people, all my campaign team was, for the most part, under 30, that just got involved because they wanted to make a difference and they knew that they could, and it worked. And I just, to people that feel discouraged or anything about our political system, I would say, you don't stand on the sidelines. Yeah, get on the field and start playing. You'd be surprised at what a difference you can make. Any other questions?
Thank you.
On behalf of JCI Edmonton, our guests, and our members tonight, thank you very much
Thank you.
for speaking to us. We have some presents.
Oh, thank you very much.
This one's a little heavy.
Okay.
We also have a draw for our members here. Maybe I'll get Julie to pull a card.
What I'm going to do is I've left some business cards here too, and I'll leave them here. And if anybody wants to take them, and one of the things is, being a younger person, I really want to utilize technology to communicate with people and to facilitate conversation and ideas. And so sometime in the fall we'll be launching a website that hopefully will be very interactive and robust. And that's why the video camera was here. We're going to get this up on the website so that other people can see it as well.